Get out of the way, Scarface! Derek Sullivan, SEAL Team 6 squad leader, shoved hard against the shoulder of the woman bending to collect scattered files in the narrow corridor of the CIA Blacksite. The flickering fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the long scar running from her left temple down to her cheek, the mark of a blade that had cut deep into flesh. Jesus Christ! Are you here to translate or audition for a horror movie? Raucous laughter erupted from the group of young operators, echoing off the concrete walls of the confined space. Rachel Mitchell slowly straightened, her worn military jacket wrapped tight around her body, despite the 45-degree heat of the Afghanistan desert seeping through the facility's inadequate air conditioning. Sweat rolled down her neck in rivulets, but she made no move to remove the heavy garment. "Sorry," she said quietly, her voice hoarse and rough, avoiding their eyes as she clutched the files to her chest. "You should be sorry for showing up with a face like that." Rodriguez, the youngest operator in the group, made an exaggerated gagging motion. "I'm guessing the Taliban didn't try very hard with their torture. They should have done us all a favor and covered the whole thing." His buddies high-fived him, their tactical gear rattling with the movement. But in 20 minutes, everything would change completely when Firebase Phoenix came under attack. And they would discover that the woman they were mocking hadn't just survived hell. She had become the nightmare of those who created it. Now, let's return to Firebase Phoenix, where Rachel's truth is about to surface. The translation room was a cramped space filled with monitors, stacks of documents, and the constant hum of servers processing intercepted communications. Rachel moved through it with careful, deliberate motions, organizing files with a precision that seemed at odds with her trembling hands. She paused over a map of Kandahar province, her fingers hovering above the topographical lines as if touching them might transport her back to a place she'd rather forget. Martinez, the team's combat medic, entered quietly to grab medical supplies from the adjacent storage room. He noticed how she held her pen, not like a civilian translator, but with the specific grip of someone who'd spent years studying a rifle scope. The observation lasted only a second before Derek's voice boomed through the doorway. "Mitchell, we need those intercepts translated before the briefing in 20 minutes. Try not to bleed on the documents." More laughter followed as Derek and his team filed into the briefing room, their boots heavy on the concrete floor. As they passed, Derek deliberately knocked his coffee cup with his elbow, sending hot liquid spreading across Rachel's desk. She said nothing, merely reached for paper towels to clean the mess. As she leaned forward, her sleeve rode up, revealing a pattern of burn marks circling her wrist, the distinctive scarring left by heated wire restraints. Rodriguez, ever ready with his phone, snapped a quick photo. "Holy, check out the freak show," he typed into their group chat, attaching the image. "Bet she's got more under that jacket. Taliban must have had fun with this one." The responses came quickly. "Nightmare fuel. Why'd they let her on base looking like that? Someone check if Halloween came early." Rachel continued cleaning, methodical and silent. When she reached for files that had gotten wet, Martinez noticed something else. The way she automatically checked the room's exits, how her body positioned itself to keep all entrances in view. These weren't the habits of a translator. "You served?" he asked quietly, handing her fresh paper towels. She looked up at him, something flickering in her eyes before disappearing. "Just a translator," she said, her voice flat. "Always have been." Elena Vasquez, the intelligence analyst assigned to Firebase Phoenix, entered with a fresh batch of intercepted communications. She was one of the few people on base who treated Rachel with basic human decency, perhaps because she, too, knew what it was like to be dismissed based on appearance. A young Latina woman in a world of alpha male operators. "These came in priority," Elena said, setting down documents written entirely in Pashto. "Command needs them translated ASAP." Rachel picked up the papers and began reading without reaching for a dictionary or translation software. Her eyes moved rapidly across the text, and she began writing in English with the same speed a native speaker would copy their own language. Elena watched, impressed despite herself. Most translators needed reference materials for dialect-specific terms, but Rachel worked as if she'd grown up speaking both languages. "Briefing room, 5 minutes." Derek's voice carried through the walls. "And Mitchell, you were not invited. Translators don't need tactical knowledge. Just have those reports ready." Rachel glanced at the wall where a patrol route map hung, studied it for exactly 3 seconds, then returned to her work. She handed Elena the translated documents. "Tell them to avoid grid reference 3792 tomorrow. The intercepts mention increased activity there." "You should tell them yourself. They won't listen to me." Rachel's scarred face remained expressionless. "Just make sure someone knows." Lunchtime at Firebase Phoenix meant crowding into the small mess hall, where the smell of overcooked military rations mixed with the ever-present dust that infiltrated every corner of the facility. Rachel sat alone at a corner table, her jacket still firmly in place, despite the sweat staining the collar. She ate mechanically, each movement careful and contained. The operators occupied the large central table, their conversation loud and punctuated with bursts of testosterone-fueled laughter. Derek held court, regaling his team with a story about a raid from the previous week. Rodriguez, not content with the morning's mockery, noticed Rachel sitting alone. "Hey, check it out," he said to Thompson, their communications specialist. "Scarface is sweating buckets. Think she's hiding more freak show under that jacket? $20 says her whole body looks like ground beef." Jackson, their heavy weapons operator, chimed in. Rodriguez stood up, grabbing his water bottle. "Only one way to find out." He sauntered over to Rachel's table with exaggerated casualness, his teammates watching with anticipation. As he passed behind her, he accidentally tipped his water bottle, sending cold water cascading down her back. "Oh, my bad," he said with false concern as Rachel jumped up, the water soaking through her jacket. "Here, let me help you with that. You should take it off. Dry it out." Rachel clutched the jacket closer, water dripping onto the floor. "It's fine." "Come on, don't be shy." Rodriguez reached for the collar. "We're all friends here." "I said it's fine." Her voice carried an edge that made him pause. Derek stood up from the main table, his 6'3" frame imposing as he walked over. "What's the problem, Mitchell?" "Rodriguez is trying to help. Take off the damn jacket." "I prefer to keep it on." "What are you hiding? More freak show?" Derek's voice turned commanding, the tone he used with subordinates who needed to be put in place. "This is a military installation. We have dress code standards. If you're hiding identifying marks that could compromise security, there's no security issue." Rachel's jaw tightened. "I'll be the judge of that. The jacket, off now." The mess hall had gone quiet, everyone watching the confrontation. Rachel stood perfectly still, calculating. During the moment of tense silence, the collar of her shirt shifted slightly, revealing the edge of old dog tags hanging around her neck. The metal was worn and scratched, the text too faded to read from a distance. Chen, the base sniper, squinted at them. "Those are old-style tags. Haven't seen those in—" An alarm suddenly pierced the air, cutting through the confrontation. The distinctive whine of incoming mortars followed immediately. The first impact shook the building, sending dust cascading from the ceiling. "Positions now!" Derek commanded, his team instantly switching to combat mode. They rushed toward the door, grabbing weapons from the ready rack. "Mitchell, get to the bunker with the other civilians." But Rachel didn't move toward the bunker. Instead, she stood still, her head tilted slightly, as if listening to something beyond the explosions. Her lips moved silently, counting. 3, 2, 1. Another impact, this time closer. She was tracking the pattern, calculating trajectory and reload times. "Grid 3792, she said to no one in particular. 81 mm mortars, Chinese type 67 copies, 3 tubes, 45-second rotation. Martinez, pulling on his tactical vest, heard her. "How could you possibly—" The bunker, Mitchell! Derek shoved her toward the reinforced shelter. Now! Rachel stumbled from his push, but didn't head for safety. Instead, she moved toward the weapons rack. Her hands found an M24 sniper rifle, and in 15 seconds, she had it stripped, checked, and reassembled. The movements were automatic, muscle memory overriding thought. What the hell are you doing? Williams, their breacher, tried to grab the weapon from her. She sidestepped him with an economy of movement that spoke of training and headed for the ladder to the observation tower. Rodriguez moved to block her path. Drop the weapon, Scarface. You're going to get someone killed playing soldier. The next mortar round impacted 50 meters from their position, close enough to rattle windows. In the confusion, Rachel slipped past Rodriguez and climbed. The tower was exposed, a dangerous position during a mortar attack, but it offered clear sight lines to the surrounding hills. Derek's voice crackled over the radio. All units, defensive positions. We have incoming from grid 3792. Exactly where Rachel had predicted. In the tower, she settled into position with the rifle. Through the scope, she scanned the hills until she found them. 3 mortar positions, well concealed, but not invisible to someone who knew what to look for. The crews were efficient, professional, Taliban fighters trained by someone who understood Western tactics. She controlled her breathing, falling into a rhythm she thought she'd left behind. The first shot cracked across the desert, 1,200 meters away. A mortar crew member dropped. Before his teammates could react, she'd worked the bolt and fired again. The tube operator fell across his weapon. The third shot destroyed the mortar's sight mechanism, rendering it useless. She shifted to the second position. 3 more shots in rapid succession. Each one found its mark with surgical precision. By the time she lined up on the third position, the crew was already abandoning their weapon, understanding they were facing a sniper of exceptional skill. The mortars stopped. In the sudden silence, Derek's team stood frozen in the courtyard below, staring up at the tower. Martinez was the first to speak. Those were impossible shots. The wind alone at that range. Elena had been watching from the command center window. She grabbed her laptop and ran outside. Derek, you need to see her shooting scores from the range computer. I pulled them after she zeroed the weapons last week. She's been practicing when no one was around. Practicing? Chen, their designated marksman, looked at the data. These aren't practice scores. These are Olympic level. No, these are beyond that. These are beyond. As Rachel climbed down from the tower, her jacket sleeve caught on a protruding bolt, tearing the fabric and revealing more of her arm. The fluorescent lights of the courtyard illuminated not just burn scars, but something else. A small tattoo on her wrist, partially obscured by scar tissue. It looked like a series of numbers and letters, military in style, but not immediately recognizable. Ground attack incoming! Brooks, the security chief, shouted from the main gate. Multiple vehicles approaching from the east. The team rushed to defensive positions, leaving Rachel standing in the courtyard. Derek paused, looking back at her with a mixture of suspicion and confusion. Get to cover, Mitchell. Whatever this is, we'll sort it out if we survive. But Rachel was looking past him, her eyes fixed on a figure emerging from the command center. Deputy Director Rogers, CIA liaison and second in command of the facility, stood watching her with an expression of growing recognition. Their eyes met across the courtyard, and something passed between them, a history written in pain and betrayal. A flash of memory hit Rachel like a physical blow. A dark room, the smell of rust and fear. Roger's voice, calm and professional. Tell me where your team is positioned, and this can end. You're strong, I'll give you that. But everyone breaks eventually. She forced the memory down, focusing on the present threat. The first vehicles were within range now, technical trucks with mounted heavy weapons. Derek's team opened fire, their training evident in their coordinated defense. But there were too many attackers, and they were too well organized. They know our positions, Jackson shouted over the gunfire. It's like they have our defensive plans. Because they did, Rachel thought. This wasn't a random attack. Someone had provided intelligence. Martinez noticed her hands as she reached for another weapon. Her fingernails, or where they should have been. The nail beds were scarred, some growing back irregularly, others permanently damaged. He'd seen similar injuries before, on a Marine who'd been captured in Fallujah. The Taliban had a fondness for pliers during interrogations. Has anyone ever judged you by your appearance before learning your true story? Drop a comment below sharing your experience. Whether you've been underestimated or witnessed someone else being dismissed too quickly, your stories create a community of understanding. Now watch what happens when the base comes under fire. The defensive line was failing. Williams took a bullet in the shoulder and went down. Martinez rushed to treat him while under fire, but their position was being overrun. Derek made the call. Fall back to the command center. Defensive positions inside. As they retreated, Rachel noticed something the others missed. The pattern of attack was familiar. The feints, the timing, the systematic elimination of defensive positions. She'd seen it before, in classified after-action reports from Unit 19 operations. Someone had taught the attackers how to defeat American special operations tactics. She grabbed an AK-47 from a fallen attacker and moved with a purpose that contrasted sharply with the chaos around her. When Rodriguez's position was flanked, she appeared like a ghost, neutralizing the threat with controlled bursts that spoke of extensive combat experience. "Where the hell did you learn to shoot like that?" Rodriguez gasped as she pulled him to cover. She didn't answer, already moving to the next crisis point. Her movements were economical, professional, deadly. Each room she cleared, each corner she took, was textbook special operations procedure. But from a textbook, most people never got to read. Derek, coordinating the defense from the command center, watched her work through the security monitors. She moved like his best operators, better even. The scarred translator who couldn't defend herself in the mess hall was systematically eliminating threats with a competence that spoke of years of Tier 1 training. "Who are you?" he whispered to the screen. Rogers stood behind him, his face pale. "Pull back all units to the command center," he ordered over the radio. "We'll consolidate there and push east through grid 4013. Rachel, hearing the order, immediately keyed her radio. "Negative. That route is compromised. They'll be waiting." "Who is this? Get off the command frequency," Rogers snapped. "Mitchell," Derek said slowly. "How do you know the route is compromised?" "Because it's the same pattern." Her voice over the radio was different now, authoritative, certain. "Kandahar, August 2019. Helmand, October 2019. Someone's using Unit 19 tactics against us." The radio fell silent. Unit 19 was classified at the highest levels. Most people in the special operations community thought it was a myth, a boogeyman story about a unit so secret it didn't officially exist. Martinez's medical kit contained professional-grade trauma supplies, including advanced hemostatic agents, typically reserved for combat medics, and specialized burn treatment gels developed for military field hospitals. The prescription nerve medication visible in her bag cost significantly more than standard painkillers, the type prescribed for severe chronic pain from torture-induced nerve damage that even morphine couldn't touch. As he treated Williams, Martinez kept glancing at Rachel. Pieces of a puzzle were falling into place. "The scars," he said to Elena, who was coordinating communications. "They're not random. Someone worked her over professionally." Elena had pulled up Rachel Mitchell's personnel file. It was thin, too thin. Translator, contracted 6 months ago. No military service listed. But the background check was signed off at levels that didn't match a simple translator hire. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered. "Security clearance for a translator doesn't go this high unless—" Another explosion rocked the building. RPG impacts were tearing holes in their defenses. Rogers continued issuing orders that seemed designed to put them in increasingly vulnerable positions. Rachel listened to each one with growing certainty. He was deliberately trying to get them killed. The moment of truth came when a rocket-propelled grenade hit the command center directly. The blast threw everyone to the ground, and in the chaos, a burst pipe began spraying water across the room. Rachel's jacket, already torn and damaged, finally gave way as she pulled Williams to safety. The water soaked through immediately, plastering the fabric to her back. As she stood, helping Martinez with the wounded, the wet material clung to her skin, revealing what she'd hidden so carefully. Her entire back was a landscape of scars, not random wounds, but deliberate, systematic torture. Whip marks layered upon whip marks, creating a horrific tapestry of survival. But within the pattern of scars, burned into the skin with brutal precision, were characters that made several people gasp in recognition. V-1E7, Chen read out loud, his voice shaking. Viper, Unit 19, Operator 7. The room went silent, except for the distant gunfire. Even Derek, hardened by years of combat, felt his throat tighten at the sight. These weren't just torture scars. They were a message carved into living flesh. Martinez dropped his medical supplies. Viper, oh my God. You're the ghost sniper. You're supposed to be dead. Rogers had gone white as paper, his hand moving toward his sidearm. But before he could draw it, the main entrance burst open. General Harrison, 3 stars gleaming on his uniform, entered with a squad of Rangers. The 60-year-old commander of JSOC had personally flown in when the attack started, and his weathered face showed the urgency of the situation. His eyes swept the room, taking in the chaos, the wounded, the ongoing firefight visible through the windows. Then his gaze fell on Rachel, standing there with her back exposed, the scars telling their terrible story. The general's face went through a series of expressions: shock, recognition, then something approaching awe. He straightened to attention and raised his hand in a salute that he'd never given to anyone below field-grade rank. Viper, he said, his voice carrying across the room. They told me you were dead. You saved my life in Kandahar. Operation Serpent's Fang. Every operator in the room knew that name. Serpent's Fang was legendary, a mission so classified that even its existence was debated. A single sniper had held off an entire Taliban battalion for 72 hours, allowing a trapped Marine company to evacuate. The sniper had never been identified, listed only as Operator 7 in the redacted reports. Rachel finally turns to face Rogers, water still dripping from her ruined jacket. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of 8 months of agony. He sold us out, she said, pointing at Rogers. He gave the Taliban our positions, our routes, our extraction points. 12 operators died because of him. Rogers pulled his weapon, but Rachel moved faster than thought. The disarmament was textbook, followed by a strike that dropped him to his knees. She stood over him, his own pistol in her hand. 8 months you had me, she continued, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. 8 months of questions. Where is Unit 19? What are their protocols? Who are the operators? Every scar on my back is a question I didn't answer. The flashback hit everyone in the room like a physical force, pulled into her memory by the raw emotion in her voice. A concrete room, chains, Rogers standing in civilian clothes while local contractors worked, the whistle of leather through the air, the impact, the smell of blood, and through it all, her silence. Not a word, not a name, not a location. But I remembered everything, Rachel said. Every detail, every word you said, every time you laughed when they brought out the wire. I survived because I knew that one day I'd find you, and the 12 ghosts of my brothers and sisters would have justice. General Harrison had his phone out, speaking rapidly. This is Harrison. Lock down Firebase Phoenix. No one in or out. Get JAG and CID here immediately. He looked at Rogers, disgust evident on his face. Especially him. The attack outside was faltering. Without Rogers feeding them intelligence, the attackers found themselves facing a coordinated defense led by soldiers who now understood they'd been betrayed from within. The Rangers. Harrison Brought made short work of the remaining threats. Derek approached Rachel slowly, as if approaching a wounded predator. He went to one knee, a gesture of respect rarely seen from a SEAL team leader. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "We didn't know. We couldn't have known." "No one was supposed to know," Rachel replied, suddenly looking exhausted. "I died 3 years ago. The agency confirmed it. Closed casket funeral, star on the wall at Langley." Elena had been furiously typing on her laptop, pulling up classified files with her elevated access. "Operation Red Sand," she read. Unit 19 was ambushed during a black operation in Pakistan. 12 KIA, 1 MIA, presumed dead. Operator 7, real name classified, was captured during the extraction attempt. "I held the rear guard," Rachel said quietly. "Someone had to, or we'd all die. I thought I was buying them time to escape. I didn't know Rogers had already given them our extraction route." The pieces were falling into place with horrible clarity. Rogers had been playing both sides, selling American secrets to the highest bidder. When Unit 19 got too close to uncovering his network, he'd arranged their elimination. But he had made one mistake. He'd wanted to extract their operational secrets first. So, he'd kept Rachel alive. "The scars," Martinez said, his medical training making him understand what others might miss. "The pattern isn't random. He was systematically breaking down nerve clusters, trying to maximize pain without causing death. This is advanced torture methodology." Rachel pulled the ruined jacket around herself, a reflexive gesture of modesty that seemed out of place given what they'd all just witnessed. Every day he'd ask the same questions: unit positions, safe houses, contact protocols. Every day I said nothing. After month 4, he got creative. She turned slightly, and they could see that the scarring continued around her sides. "The numbers burned into my back. He did that on day 200. Said if I wouldn't tell him who I was, he'd make sure my corpse could be identified when they finally dumped my body." General Harrison's Rangers had Rogers in restraints now. The deputy director's facade of authority had crumbled entirely. He looked like what he was, a traitor caught in the spotlight. "You have no proof," Rogers said desperately. "It's her word against mine. She's obviously suffering from PTSD, making up stories." Rachel reached into her jacket's inner pocket and pulled out a small waterproof container. Inside was a memory card. 8 months of torture," she said calmly. "You recorded every session, though I doubt you knew your local contractors were also recording for their own protection. Funny thing about survival, it makes you very patient. Took me 2 years to track down the right people, another year to get close enough to you." She handed the memory card to General Harrison. "Everything's on there. Financial records, communication logs, even video of him negotiating the Unit 19 ambush. 12 names, General. 12 heroes who died because of him." The silence in the command center was profound. Outside, the last sporadic gunfire had ceased. The attack was over, but the revelations were just beginning. Derek found his voice. "The translator position. You came here specifically for him." Rachel nodded. 6 months of playing the broken victim. 6 months of letting people see the scars and look away in disgust. 6 months of listening to him give orders, watching him play the patriot while my brothers' and sisters' blood was still on his hands. Rodriguez had gone pale, remembering his cruel words from the morning. "The water. I poured water on you." "You did what I expected," Rachel said without emotion. "People see scars and make assumptions. It's human nature. I counted on it. The more broken I appeared, the less Rogers would suspect I was a threat." General Harrison was reviewing something on his phone, his expression growing darker. "Viper, your file. 127 confirmed kills, 5 silver stars, 2 Purple Hearts. You were the youngest operator ever inducted into Unit 19. I was 22, Rachel confirmed. Recruited out of Marine Scout Sniper School. Top of every class, perfect scores across the board. They said I had a gift. You still do, Chen said, gesturing toward the tower. Those shots you made in combat conditions. It's impossible. Nothing's impossible if you're patient enough, Rachel replied. Rogers taught me that during month 6, when he started on the fingernails. Several people instinctively looked at her hands again, now understanding the full horror of what those scars represented. Each missing or damaged nail was a day she'd held out, a day she'd protected her unit's secrets with her silence. Elena's laptop chimed. She'd found something else. General, there's more. The attack today. Rogers didn't just compromise our position. He's been feeding intel to multiple cells. There's a whole network. Rachel wasn't surprised. Check for references to Scorpion. It's a code name I heard during the interrogations. Someone higher than Rogers. Someone still active. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about revenge for Unit 19. There was an entire conspiracy within the intelligence community, and Rachel had spent 3 years working her way to its heart. We need to evacuate you, General Harrison decided. If there are others involved. I'm not running again. Rachel's voice was still. I ran once when I escaped the compound where they held me. Crawled for 3 days through the mountains with a broken leg and infected wounds. I promised myself and the ghosts of my team, never again. The aftermath of the attack transformed Firebase Phoenix into a crime scene. JAG officers arrived within the hour, accompanied by Criminal Investigation Division agents who began processing evidence with methodical precision. Rogers sat in restraints. His earlier bravado completely evaporated as investigator after investigator reviewed the contents of Rachel's memory card. General Harrison had commandeered the briefing room, turning it into a temporary command post. Rachel sat across from him, having refused medical attention despite Martinez's repeated attempts to treat her various injuries. She had finally accepted a plain black t-shirt to replace her ruined jacket, seemingly unconcerned that her scarred arms were now visible to everyone. 3 years, the general said, studying her with a mixture of respect and concern. You've been hunting him for 3 years. 3 years, 4 months, and 16 days, Rachel corrected. The day I crawled out of that hellhole in Pakistan and realized my entire unit was dead. Derek's team had gathered outside the briefing room, their earlier mockery replaced by something approaching awe. Through the window, they could see the legendary operator they dismissed as a weak civilian, now revealed as one of the most lethal snipers in American military history. I owe her my life, Rodriguez said quietly. When my position was overrun, she appeared out of nowhere. I thought she was just lucky, but those moves, that was pure training. Elena entered with a stack of decoded files. We've broken Rogers' personal encryption. You were right about Scorpion. There are references throughout, plus payment authorizations going back 5 years. This is bigger than just Unit 19. Rachel leaned forward, scanning the documents with practiced eyes. Here, she pointed to a series of transactions. These dates correspond with 3 other special operations losses. Teams that were ambushed in Iraq, Syria, and Somalia, all blamed on intelligence failures. They weren't failures. General Harrison's voice was grim. They were betrayals. How many of our people died because of this? 47 that I can confirm, Rachel said. Maybe more. Rogers was middle management. Scorpion is the real player. The general's phone rang. He listened briefly. Then his expression darkened further. Rogers just tried to make a deal. He'll give up Scorpion in exchange for protective custody and reduced charges. No deal, Rachel said immediately. He tortured me for 8 months. He killed my entire unit. He doesn't get to walk away from this. It's not your call, Viper. If Scorpion is as highly placed as we think, then I'll find him myself. Rachel stood, her movement fluid despite the obvious pain she was in. I've done it before. Martinez had been reviewing her medical files, the ones Elena had finally gained access to. Viper, Rachel, These injuries, how are you even functional? The nerve damage alone should have you on permanent disability. She turned to him, and for the first time since the revelation, showed a glimpse of vulnerability. You learn to live with pain when the alternative is letting them win. Every scar is a reminder that I survived and they didn't break me. Rogers was brought into an adjacent interrogation room, visible through reinforced glass. Two CID investigators began questioning him, but it was clear he was holding back, trying to leverage his knowledge for a better deal. Rachel watched with cold eyes. "Let me talk to him," she said. General Harrison shook his head. "That's not how this works. You're a witness now, possibly a victim. You can't—" "I'm not a victim." The steel in her voice cut through his words. "I'm the survivor who brought you evidence of the largest intelligence breach in special operations history. 5 minutes, General. Give me 5 minutes." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what those 5 minutes represented. Not just interrogation, but a reckoning 3 years in the making. Harrison studied her face, seeing not the scarred translator, but the operator who had held off a battalion single-handedly. "Supervised," he finally said, "with full recording, and you don't touch him." Rachel nodded and walked to the interrogation room. Rogers looked up as she entered, and his face went white. The investigators stepped back, understanding they were witnessing something beyond normal protocol. "Hello, Commander," Rachel said, using his old rank with deliberate irony. "Comfortable? The restraints aren't too tight? I remember you were very concerned about my comfort during our time together." Rogers couldn't meet her eyes. "I was following orders." "No." Her voice cut like a blade. "You were following greed. I've seen the bank records. 20 million over 5 years. That's what my brothers and sisters were worth to you. That's what my 8 months of agony bought." She circled the table, each step measured and deliberate. "Do you remember day 137? You brought in the specialist with the electrical equipment. You told him to focus on my back because, and I quote, 'the face is already ruined. Might as well make the rest match.'" Rogers flinched. Around the observation room, hardened operators turned away from the glass, unable to watch his discomfort in the face of her calm recitation of horrors. "Or day 212, Rachel continued, "when you decided waterboarding wasn't working and tried something more creative. Did you know that human skin can only take so much before it stops healing properly? You found that out, didn't you?" "What do you want?" Rogers whispered. "I wanted justice for my team. I wanted you to face consequences for what you did. But mostly—" She leaned forward, her scarred face inches from his. "I wanted you to know that every single thing you did to me was pointless. You got nothing. Not one name, not one location, not one protocol. 8 months of torture. And you failed." Rogers broke. The tears came suddenly, pathetically, as the weight of his failure crashed down. "Scorpion made me. He said if I didn't deliver intelligence, he'd expose my debts, my affairs. I never meant for it to go so far." "Names!" General Harrison interrupted from the doorway. "We need names." Rogers looked between Harrison and Rachel, seeing no mercy in either face. "Deputy Director Sarah Chen, NSA. She's Scorpion. She's been running assets in CIA, DIA, even JSOC for years. Everything goes through her. Intel, payments, target selections." The revelation sent shockwaves through the room. Sarah Chen was a respected figure in the intelligence community, with access to virtually every classified program in existence. If she was Scorpion, the damage was incalculable. Rachel processed this information with the same analytical coldness she'd applied to everything else. Chen was read into Unit 19's operations 6 months before the ambush. Timeline fits. She turned back to Rogers. "How do you contact her?" "An encrypted phone. It's in my office safe, but she'll know something's wrong if I don't check in by 1800 hours. General Harrison checked his watch. "That's in 2 hours. We need to move fast." He turned to his aide. "Get me a direct line to the SecDef. This is about to go way above my pay grade." As Rogers was led away, still sobbing, Rachel remained in the interrogation room. Derek approached cautiously, His entire demeanor transformed from the morning's arrogance. "Viper, Rachel, I need to apologize. What we said, how we treated you." "You saw what I wanted you to see," she interrupted. "A broken woman hiding behind scars. It's not your fault for believing the performance. Still, we should have been better. You're one of us, and we failed to recognize that." Rachel's expression softened slightly. "I haven't been one of anyone in 3 years. When your entire unit dies and you survive, you become something else. Not quite alive, not quite dead, just functional." Martinez joined them, carrying his medical kit. "At least let me properly treat those wounds from today's fighting. You took shrapnel in your shoulder during the RPG attack." She allowed him to work, wincing slightly as he cleaned the wound. The pain seemed to trigger another memory, and for a moment, her eyes went distant. "They had a doctor," she said quietly. "Not to heal, but to ensure I stayed conscious during the worst parts. He was very proud of his work, said he had learned from the best interrogators in the world. I wonder sometimes if he's still out there, teaching others his techniques." The room fell silent, except for the sound of medical instruments. Elena broke it by entering with urgent intelligence. "Chen just initiated an emergency protocol. She's pulling assets, moving money. If Rogers missed his check-in, she knows something's wrong." General Harrison made a decision. "We're not letting another Unit 19 happen. Rachel, I'm reinstating you to active duty, effective immediately. Full operational authority to pursue Scorpion." "I'm not the soldier I was," Rachel warned. "The nerve damage is permanent. My hands shake sometimes. The nightmares. You just took out 6 mortar positions at range while under fire." Harrison cut her off. "You're more capable wounded than most operators at their peak. The question is, do you want to finish this?" Rachel looked at the scars on her arms, then at the operators surrounding her. For 3 years, she'd been alone with her ghosts. Now, suddenly, she was being offered a chance to rejoin the living. "I'll need resources," she said, "and a team I can trust." Derek stepped forward immediately. "You have one. My entire squad volunteers." One by one, his operators nodded agreement. Even Rodriguez, still shaken by his earlier cruelty, stood ready to follow her lead. During the firefight, Rachel's tactical equipment included military-grade communication devices with encrypted channels that allowed real-time intelligence sharing between special operations units. Her smartphone, ruggedized for battlefield conditions with satellite uplink capabilities, maintained secure data transmission even under heavy electronic warfare. Technology that costs tens of thousands but proved invaluable when cellular towers were compromised. She pulled it out now, fingers flying across the screen as she accessed databases she shouldn't have been able to reach. "I maintain some connections," she explained to Harrison's raised eyebrow. "People who thought they were helping a dead woman's ghost. Chen's in Washington, but she has a safe house in Virginia, Fairfax County, purchased under a shell company." "How could you possibly know that?" "Because I've been mapping the network for 2 years. Every financial transaction, every dead drop, every meeting. Rogers was just the last piece. I needed him in custody to ensure Chen couldn't use him as a cutout." The full scope of her operation was becoming clear. This wasn't just revenge. It was a systematically planned counterintelligence operation run by a single person against an entire network. Elena pulled up satellite imagery of the Fairfax location. Thermal shows 3 vehicles, possibly 6 to 8 personnel. If she's pulling assets, this could be her rally point, or a trap, Derek pointed out. "If she knows we're coming, she doesn't know about me," Rachel said. "As far as anyone knows, Viper died in Pakistan. My return hasn't been reported outside this room." General Harrison saw the tactical advantage immediately. A ghost attacking ghosts. Poetic justice. Plans formed quickly. A joint task force combining Derek's SEALs, Harrison's Rangers, and federal agents would move on the safe house. But the key would be Rachel, the unknown element Chen couldn't have planned for. As they prepared, Martinez pulled Rachel aside. That medical kit in your quarters, those weren't just pain meds, were they? The nerve blockers, the specialized compounds. You've been self-medicating to stay functional. She nodded. The damage is degenerative. Every year it gets worse, but I only needed to last long enough to finish this. And after? Rachel didn't answer, but Martinez saw the truth in her eyes. She'd never planned for an after. This had always been a one-way mission in her mind. The flight to Virginia took 2 hours. Rachel spent it reviewing intelligence with Elena, who'd proven invaluable in piecing together the electronic trail. The younger woman worked with focused intensity, occasionally glancing at Rachel with something approaching hero worship. "Can I ask you something?" Elena finally said. "During those 8 months, what kept you going? What made you strong enough to survive?" Rachel was quiet for a long moment. "Rage," she finally answered. "Pure, clean rage. They took everything from me. My team, my body, my future. But they couldn't take my anger. Every morning I woke up in that cell. I fed that rage, memorized every face, every word, every detail, told myself that if I survived, I'd use it all against them. And now, what drives you now?" "The same thing, but also—" Rachel paused, looking around the aircraft at the operators preparing for battle. "Maybe something else. These people, your generation, you deserve better than leaders who sell you out for money. Maybe that's worth fighting for too." The approach to the safe house was textbook. 3 teams, multiple entry points, overwhelming force. But as they moved into position, Rachel noticed something wrong. The thermal signatures hadn't moved in 30 minutes. No communication chatter, no sentries. "It's too quiet," she told Harrison over comms. "Chen's too smart for this." They breached anyway, flooding the building with coordinated precision. What they found inside changed everything. Bodies, 6 of them, all shot execution style. And sitting at the kitchen table, very much alive, was Deputy Director Sarah Chen. She was younger than expected, early 40s, with an unremarkable face that had helped her hide in plain sight for years. She didn't resist as the operators surrounded her, simply raised her hands with a slight smile. "I was wondering when you'd arrive," she said calmly. "Though I must admit, I expected Rogers to last longer. 8 hours. He really has gotten soft." General Harrison stepped forward. "Sarah Chen, you're under arrest for treason, conspiracy, and murder of federal agents, among other things, I'm sure." Her eyes swept the room and stopped on Rachel. "You're new. Special operations by the stance. Rangers? No. Something more specialized. Delta, perhaps?" Rachel remained silent, her face partially obscured by tactical gear. But Chen was studying her with the intensity of someone solving a puzzle. "Wait." Chen's smile widened. "That scar pattern on your hand. I've seen it before in photographs. Rogers was so proud of his work. He documented everything." Her eyes lit up with recognition. "Operator 7, you're supposed to be dead." "Surprise," Rachel said, removing her helmet to reveal her scarred face. For the first time, Chen's composure cracked. "Impossible. The facility in Pakistan confirmed your death. The body wasn't mine. A local woman who died during an escape attempt. Similar height and build. The guards didn't look too closely at a corpse that had been through what I had." Chen recovered quickly, her analytical mind already working. "Fascinating. 3 years underground. You're the one who's been dismantling my network from the shadows. I wondered who was good enough to stay hidden that long." "Your network is finished," Harrison stated. "We have Rogers. We have the files. We have you. It's over." "Is it?" Chen leaned back in her chair. "General, do you know how many operations I've overseen? How many assets I've placed? You've caught 2 nodes in a web that spans continents. Cut us out, and 3 more will take our place. Then we'll cut them out too, Rachel said quietly. One by one, however long it takes. Chen studied her with something approaching respect. You really are remarkable. 8 months of torture, and you gave up nothing. Do you know how rare that is? In my entire career, I've only seen it twice. You and one other. Who? Harrison demanded. Oh, he's long dead. A Soviet operator from the Cold War days. The parallels were quite striking, actually. Same resilience, same tactical brilliance, same fatal flaw. What flaw? Rachel asked despite herself. You both confused revenge with justice. Tell me, Operator 7, when you kill me, and we both know that's your real plan, will it bring back Unit 19? Will it erase those scars? Will it give you peace? The words hung in the air like a challenge. Every operator in the room knew Chen was right about Rachel's intentions. This had never been about arrest and trial. This had been about blood for blood. Rachel moved closer, her hand resting on her sidearm. You're right. It won't bring them back, but it'll ensure you never do it to anyone else. Will it? I told you, cut one head off. Then I'll cut them all off. Rachel's voice was winter ice. Every asset, every contact, every banker and broker who facilitated this. I've got nothing but time and scars to remind me why. Chen's smile faltered. She'd dealt with idealists and patriots before, people driven by cause or country. But Rachel was something different, a revenant powered by pure purpose, untethered from normal human constraints. In the aftermath, the investigation required specialized legal services and military tribunals that operated at the highest levels of classification. The financial forensics team utilized advanced banking software to trace Chen's offshore accounts through multiple cryptocurrency exchanges, technology that transformed digital breadcrumbs into undeniable evidence of treason that would ensure justice for the fallen Unit 19 operators. You want names? Chen said suddenly. I'll give you names. Full disclosure, every operation, every asset, but I want something in return. You're not in a position to negotiate, Harrison said. Aren't I? Chen pulled out a phone modified with additional encryption hardware. One call to my Beijing contact, and 37 undercover assets get burned. Their deaths will be unpleasant. Or we can be civilized about this. The room tensed. Derek's team raised weapons, but Chen showed no fear. She'd played this game too long to be intimidated by mere guns. What do you want? Harrison asked through gritted teeth. Life imprisonment instead of execution. Minimum security facility. And her, she pointed at Rachel, stays away from me. Those are my terms. Rachel laughed, a sound devoid of humor. You think I need to be near you to kill you? I tracked you for 2 years without you knowing I existed. Prison walls won't protect you if I decide you need to die. For the first time, genuine fear flickered across Chen's face. She'd underestimated the depth of Rachel's commitment, the patient madness that 8 months of torture had forged. General, Chen said quickly, I suggest you control your asset before. Rachel moved, not toward Chen, but to the laptop on the table. Her fingers flew across the keys, and suddenly Chen's phone began displaying messages, communications she thought were secure, transactions she believed hidden. Beijing contact is already neutralized, Rachel said calmly. Arrested 6 hours ago by MSS. Turns out the Chinese don't appreciate double agents any more than we do. Your Moscow connection, FSB grabbed him yesterday. Mumbai, Raw got her this morning. Chen went pale. That's impossible. Those were encrypted by algorithms. I've been breaking for 18 months. Every message you sent, every order you gave, I was watching, waiting, building a case not just against you, but against everyone you've ever worked with. The full scope of Rachel's operation was staggering. While everyone thought she was hunting Rogers, she'd been systematically destroying an entire international conspiracy. Chen wasn't being arrested at the end of the network's life. She was being shown its corpse. 73 assets in 14 countries, Rachel continued. All arrested within the last 12 hours. Your entire life's work, Chen. Gone because you made one mistake. What mistake? Chen whispered. You let Rogers keep me alive. 8 months was too long. It gave me time to memorize everything. Every voice, every name he let slip, every detail of the operation. Pain is clarifying, Chen. It strips away everything except what matters. And what mattered was ensuring this never happens again. Elena had been monitoring communications. Confirmed arrests in Berlin, London, Moscow, Beijing. It's a coordinated international sweep. How did you— Ghost Viper had friends, General Harrison said quietly, understanding dawning. Assets who thought she died for them. When she reached out, they listened. Rachel nodded. Unit 19 inspired loyalty. When word spread that I survived, that I could identify their killers, people acted. CIA, NSA, DIA, Foreign Services, all united by one thing: respect for the operators who die in the shadows. Chen slumped in her chair, defeat written across her features. The game was over, and she'd lost to a ghost she'd helped create. The charges, she said weakly. Conspiracy, treason, what else? Murder, Rachel said. 12 counts for Unit 19, 35 more for the other operations you compromised. And that's just the Americans. The international charges will take years to fully prosecute. I'll die in prison. Yes. Rachel's agreement was matter-of-fact. But not by my hand. You're right about one thing. Killing you won't bring them back. But watching you rot in a cell for decades, knowing that every asset you cultivated is gone, every operation exposed, every legacy erased, that's justice. The arrest proceeded smoothly after that. Chen was processed, her various devices cataloged, her safe house turned into a crime scene. But as the sun set over Virginia, Rachel stood apart from the celebration, her scarred face unreadable. Derek approached carefully. You did it. It's over. This part is. She turned to him. But Chen was right about one thing. There are others. Maybe not connected to her, but doing the same thing, selling out operators for money or ideology, or just because they can. You can't fight them all. No, but I can try. She looked at her hands, steady now despite the nerve damage. I've got maybe 5 good years left before the damage catches up. 5 years to make sure what happened to Unit 19 doesn't happen to anyone else. General Harrison had overheard. I meant what I said. Full reinstatement. Any position you want. Name it. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. Create a new unit. Counterintelligence. Specifically focused on protecting special operations. Small, agile, with authority to operate domestically and internationally. I'll run it. Done. Name? She smiled. The first genuine expression of pleasure anyone had seen from her. Unit 19. Let something good carry that name forward. Over the following weeks, the true extent of Chen's network was revealed. The trials would take years, but the damage to American special operations had finally been stopped. Rachel threw herself into building the new Unit 19, recruiting from across the services, creating something unique in the intelligence community. She kept the scarred translator persona, sometimes using it to test base security or evaluate personnel. Those who showed kindness to the damaged woman were marked for recruitment. Those who showed cruelty were marked for removal. Martinez became her medical officer, dedicating himself to managing her injuries and finding ways to slow the degeneration. Elena joined as technical specialist, her skills invaluable in the digital age. Even Derek's team found themselves pulled into operations, their loyalty to Rachel absolute, but the ghosts remained. Late at night in her quarters at Fort Bragg, Rachel would spread out photos of the original Unit 19, 12 faces, 12 names, 12 reasons to keep fighting. The scars on her back would ache, phantom pain from wounds that had healed but never forgotten. One evening, 6 months after Chen's arrest, Rachel received an encrypted message. No sender, no traceable origin, just 5 words. Scorpion was not the head. She stared at the screen, feeling the familiar cold settle into her bones. The network was larger than even Chen had known. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Rodriguez entered, still nervous around her despite months of working together. "Ma'am, we've got a situation. Possible compromise of a Delta team in Syria. Intel suggests they're walking into an ambush." Rachel stood immediately, the pain in her back forgotten. "Alert the team. We move in 30 minutes. As Rodriguez left, she looked one more time at the anonymous message, then deleted it, and began preparing for the mission. There would always be another threat, another betrayal waiting in the shadows. But now there was also Unit 19, rebuilt from ashes, standing watch. The scars remained, they always would, but they no longer defined her limits. They marked the boundaries she'd crossed and survived. Every ridge of damaged tissue was a reminder that she'd endured the worst humanity could inflict and emerged not broken, but forged into something harder and more purposeful. In her gear bag, carefully wrapped, was a photo from the memorial service for the original Unit 19. 12 flags, 12 grieving families, 12 empty spaces in the world. She'd attended in disguise, just another mourner in the crowd, watching Rogers play the grieving commander. That image had sustained her through 3 years of hunting. Now she had new images. Her rebuilt unit in training, laughing during a brief break. Elena cracking an impossible encryption. Martinez teaching combat medicine to young operators. Derek's team perfectly executing a rescue operation based on her intelligence. Life growing from death, purpose from pain. The transport was waiting on the tarmac, engines warming. Her team was already aboard, checking equipment and reviewing mission parameters. As she walked toward them, Rachel felt the weight of command, not just of this unit, but of the promise she'd made to 12 ghosts. She paused at the aircraft door, looking back at the base spread out behind her. Somewhere out there was another Rogers, another Chen, another threat to the men and women who served in silence. They thought themselves safe in shadows, protected by classification and bureaucracy. They were wrong. The ghost sniper had returned, and she'd brought an army of ghosts with her, not the dead of Unit 19, but the living who carried their memory forward. Every operation saved, every traitor exposed, every operator brought home alive was a victory against the darkness that had claimed her brothers and sisters. "Ma'am," the loadmaster called. "We're ready for departure." Rachel nodded and boarded the aircraft. As it lifted into the night sky, she pulled out the worn photo of her original unit one last time. 12 faces looked back at her, frozen in a moment before betrayal and bullets changed everything. "Still here," she whispered to them, "still fighting." The photo went back into her pocket, close to her heart, where the deepest scars lived. Outside the window, the lights of Fort Bragg faded into darkness. Ahead lay another mission, another chance to ensure no one else joined the ranks of the betrayed dead. In the cockpit, the pilot announced they were heading on course for Syria, estimated arrival at 0300 hours local. Rachel closed her eyes, running through the mission parameters one more time. The Delta team didn't know they were compromised. They didn't know death waited in carefully prepared positions. But they also didn't know that Unit 19 was watching, that a ghost sniper who'd survived the unsurvivable was moving to protect them. Chen had asked if revenge would bring peace. She'd been wrong about the premise. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about prevention. Every scar on her body was a lesson in the cost of betrayal. Every nightmare was a reminder of what happened when trust was sold for silver. The new Unit 19 was her answer to that betrayal. Not just a fighting force, but a promise to every operator in every classified unit. Someone was watching their backs. Someone who'd paid the ultimate price and survived was ensuring they wouldn't have to. As the aircraft climbed toward cruising altitude, Rachel felt the familiar pre-mission calm settle over her. The shaking in her hands stilled. The constant pain faded to background noise. For these hours, She wasn't the scarred translator or the broken survivor. She was Viper, Unit 19, Operator 7, the ghost who refused to die. The message about Scorpion not being the head nagged at her mind. Another layer, another conspiracy, another threat. It never ended, but neither did she. As long as there were operators in harm's way, as long as there were shadows where betrayal could hide, she'd be there, watching, waiting, ready. 15 minutes to refuel, the pilot announced. Then another 4 hours to target. Rachel opened her tactical tablet and began reviewing the intelligence one more time. Satellite imagery showing the ambush positions. Communication intercepts suggesting inside knowledge. Financial transfers that didn't match official operations. All the signs she'd learned to recognize through 8 months of agony. Her team was good, getting better every day. They'd save the Delta operators, she was certain. But this was just one mission, one saved unit. Tomorrow, there would be another threat, another conspiracy, another ghost that needed hunting. She thought of Chen, now in federal custody, awaiting trial. The woman had been right about one thing. Cutting off heads just meant others grew back. But she'd been wrong about the conclusion. The answer wasn't to stop cutting. The answer was to cut faster, deeper, and to cauterize the wounds so nothing could regrow. The new Unit 19 was that cauterization, not just reacting to betrayals, but preventing them, creating consequences so severe that the next Rogers or Chen would think twice, making the shadows unsafe for those who traded in soldiers' lives. "Ma'am," Elena's voice came over the intercom. "I've got updated intel sending to your tablet now." Rachel studied the new information. The situation was worse than initial reports suggested. Not just one team compromised, but potentially 3. A coordinated effort to eliminate multiple special operations units simultaneously. The kind of complex betrayal that required inside knowledge at the highest levels. Her scarred fingers moved across the tablet, adjusting the mission parameters. They'd need to split their forces, hit multiple targets simultaneously. High risk, but leaving any team unprotected was unacceptable. "Adjust course," she told the pilot. "We're making an additional stop. Alert the backup teams." This just became a multi-site operation as her team scrambled to adapt to the new intelligence. Rachel felt a grim satisfaction. This was what Chen and her network had never understood. They thought in terms of individual operations, isolated betrayals. But Rachel thought in terms of patterns, connections, the invisible web that linked seemingly unrelated events. 3 teams compromised meant 3 sources of intelligence. 3 sources meant a coordinator. A coordinator meant another node in the network Chen claimed was unkillable. Another target for the ghost to hunt. The hunt never ended. But neither did the honor of those who had fallen. Each mission was a memorial. Each saved life a tribute to those who couldn't be saved. The scars would always ache. The nightmares would always come. But purpose transformed pain into power. "Touchdown in 5 minutes," the pilot announced. Rachel stood, feeling every old injury protest the movement. In 5 years, maybe less, the damage would catch up. The nerve degeneration would win. But not today. Today, there were operators counting on guardian angels they didn't know existed. Today, the ghost would walk again, and death would pass by those marked for betrayal. She thought one more time of the message. Scorpion was not the head. Somewhere, someone was watching, waiting to see what she'd do with that information. They thought it would discourage her, make her realize the futility of her mission. They didn't understand. She'd survived 8 months of torture by focusing on a single truth. As long as she breathed, she could fight. As long as she fought, her unit's sacrifice meant something. The network might be Hydra-headed, but she'd become something worse than any mythological monster. She'd become inevitable. The aircraft touched down at a forward operating base. Her team deployed with practiced efficiency, splitting into 3 units as planned. Rachel would lead the primary assault, targeting the most compromised position. It was the most dangerous, the most likely to go wrong, exactly where Viper needed to be. As she moved through the pre-dawn darkness, rifle steady despite the nerve damage, Rachel felt the presence of her original unit around her. Not ghosts, but memories transformed into purpose. Each step honored them. Each saved life repaid a fraction of the debt she owed their sacrifice. The ambush site appeared exactly as the intelligence had suggested. Enemy fighters in position, waiting for American operators who thought they were moving toward a routine target. The trap was perfect, professional. Whoever had planned this understood special operations tactics intimately. Another insider, another traitor, another hunt to add to her list. But first, the immediate threat. Rachel settled into her shooting position, the rifle an extension of her will despite her body's limitations. Through the scope, she counted targets, calculated wind, measured distances, the mathematics of death, as familiar as breathing. Her team was in position. The Delta operators were 5 minutes out, walking into the kill zone. Time slowed, compressed into heartbeats and trigger pulls. She took the first shot. The ambush collapsed in seconds. Precision fire from 3 angles, confusion among enemies who'd expected to be the hunters. The Delta team, alerted by her overwatch, adapted instantly. What should have been a massacre became a textbook counter-ambush. As the last enemy fighter fell, Rachel allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. 12 more operators would go home alive. 12 more families spared the folded flag and empty words. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. "Target secure," her radio crackled. "0 friendly casualties." She keyed her mic. "Acknowledged. Begin intel collection. I want everything. Documents, devices, anything that tells us who set this up." The real hunt would begin with the evidence. Somewhere in the scattered remains of the failed ambush would be breadcrumbs leading to the next traitor. And behind them, perhaps the head that Scorpion had served. As dawn broke over Syria, Rachel watched her team secure the site. Her phone buzzed with another encrypted message. "You saved them today, but can you save them all?" She typed back, "Watch me." The rescued Delta team celebrated their survival, unaware of the ghost who had saved them. That was how it should be. Heroes in shadows protecting those who served in silence. Rachel boarded the extraction helicopter, her scars aching as always. But today, they'd been worth it. Another small victory against betrayal. Another debt repaid to 12 ghosts. The helicopter turned toward home. Somewhere out there, another conspiracy was forming. But Unit 19 would be watching, ensuring those who served in darkness would never be abandoned to it. The hunt never ended. Neither did she. In the shadows of Firebase Phoenix, Rachel Mitchell's story unfolds like a thunderclap, revealing a profound life lesson. Never judge someone by their scars or outward appearance, for true strength often hides beneath layers of pain and resilience. Mocked as Scarface by those who saw only her disfigured face and trembling hands, Rachel endured ridicule in silence, her jacket a shield against the sweltering heat and prying eyes. Yet, when the base came under siege, she transformed into Viper, the legendary sniper of Unit 19, dismantling mortar crews with impossible precision and exposing a web of betrayal that had claimed her comrades' lives. Her body, a canvas of torture, whip marks, burns, and branded codes, told not of weakness, but of unbreakable will. For 8 agonizing months, she withstood horrors that would shatter most souls, memorizing every detail to one day deliver justice. This tale pierces the heart, reminding us that, in our own lives, we often dismiss the quiet ones, the scarred survivors, without knowing their battles. Perhaps you've overlooked a colleague's quiet demeanor, assuming frailty, only to discover their quiet heroism in crisis. Or maybe you've worn invisible scars from loss, betrayal, or hardship, pushing forward despite the world's indifference. Rachel's journey teaches us empathy's power, to look beyond the surface, to honor the unseen struggles that forge legends. It's a call to embrace our own resilience, turning pain into purpose, and to extend kindness where judgment once reigned. In a world quick to label, let her story inspire you to seek the warrior within everyone. If this emotional reminder resonates with you, stirring memories of your own underestimated strength or moments of misplaced judgment, drop a comment below, sharing your experience. How have scars, visible or hidden, shaped your path? Hit that like button if it moved you, and subscribe for more powerful tales of triumph over adversity. Your support keeps these stories alive. Thank you. Thank